Simcoe County has launched a new long-term strategy to address affordable housing and homelessness across the region from 2025 to 2035. The new plan, Building Up Simcoe County, lays out a coordinated data-driven roadmap to increase housing supply, strengthen homelessness prevention efforts, and improve service delivery across the housing. General Manager of Social and Community Services, Mina Fayez-Bahgat, and Community Strategies Supervisor Brittany Doner-Gilroy led the presentation highlighting the strategy's three pillars: supply, people, and system management. The plan is rooted in extensive community engagement and data analysis and aligns with both provincial and federal housing frameworks, including the National Housing Strategy and the Housing Services Act of 2011.
This strategy addresses current challenges tied to housing affordability, supply and demand challenges, as well as interventions to mitigate homelessness. The strategy also provides a unified approach. It's going to bring a collective goal that we can all galvanize around in partnership across sectors, public, private, and not-for-profit, as well as across communities and residents.
Based on already what we have committed here as a county, we're set to create through the Simcoe County Housing Master Plan 1,091 net new units and 240 additional secondary secondary suites or garden suite strategies that are going to come in the next 10 years. This adds up to 1,331 net new created units. At the same time, through basically what we're doing right now as a municipal commitment to our municipal rent supplement program, creating 820 more rent supplements in the next 10 years, relying on the Canada-Ontario Health housing benefit to come into fruition and continue to be funded. We can support 2,840 households in affordable rent, creating those units in existing stock by buying down the rent. And third, our home ownership down payment program. This is our smallest of the programs. As home ownership becomes more and more expensive, you have less participation. But just based on the last 10 years, we can add another 90 households being supported in that program. So that is a total of 3,750.
Orillia Councillor Jeff Fallis told Simcoe Community Media that the county's new housing plan is more ambitious than the previous one, but raised concerns about long wait times for affordable housing.
It's the responsibility of the county of Simcoe, but I would argue that's as a result of multiple policy actions over the last 30 years. It had historically been the federal government, and then that got downgraded. But it also does, when we really look at who has the greatest capacity to affect change through the funding amounts that they have or the budgets they have, it's really the higher levels of government that can not just move the needle, they can break off the needle and solve the problem.
Council members welcome the strategy, praising its detail and cross-departmental coordination. The new plan succeeds Simcoe County's previous 10-year strategy, which concluded last December. The plan surpassed its original goal, delivering more than 3,500 affordable housing units, against the target of 2,600 units. The county will now submit the updated strategy to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and continue implementation planning in 2026. Following is the coverage of the meeting.
Yeah, so the new plan, the targets I would suggest are a little bit more ambitious. So as had been identified in the report, in a previous 10-year plan, over that decade, we built approximately 3,692 units. Now that's both capital and operating units. On this new 10-year plan, we have an objective to build about 5,000. Now that is optimistic. It'll depend on provincial and federal funding. So I'm really hoping we can build that and more, but we will see where that ends up. It's really difficult to anticipate at this stage what we'll see at the end of the 10 years. At least from my understanding of it, it's a change in how it's being recorded. So we are still building many of those units, but there is a difference in terms of looking at operationally, are we providing for these units to be affordable, or are we actually building the units? So in the old plan, we wouldn't distinguish between the two, whereas now we're doing that a bit more, and looking at expanding a little bit into providing housing or providing supports that will ensure individuals can stay in the housing that they're currently in. So it doesn't necessarily mean the provision of affordable housing, but it'll ensure that people can still afford where they need to be. The county, as had been mentioned during the meeting, there are several different wait lists. What's important to note, though, is many of those wait lists go years in length. And so for those entering onto some of those wait lists, it might mean that in order to see affordable housing, in order to actually attain that housing, it can be 10 plus years out of waiting. And so my greatest concern is, while we are seeing an improvement in terms of our target, we're seeing some growth there from what I can see, we're not really comparing that to what the wait list is. And so I think we need to factor that in too. As had been mentioned by county staff there, it's really difficult to pinpoint if someone on a wait list is from the area, but also different wait lists can lead to different things and can have different time lengths. So it's not a perfect science in terms of identifying what is the average wait time for an individual versus when are we providing these units. That said, I still think it needs to be a factor when we're discussing this, because it can paint a different picture. If we understand that the average individual is not able to access affordable housing over 8 years, 10 years, it really does drive home kind of the urgency of the need. The one thing I would say is I am a little bit optimistic in that I've seen at other levels of government, especially the federal government right now with the biggest announcements around the budget, that there might be a bit more of a focus on affordable housing in terms of actively providing it. Really, we have to kind of look greater context. Back 30 years, this was a federal government initiative. They were the ones providing the affordable housing, and that's been downgraded provincial and municipal. And so it really is, in many ways, kind of limited to what it was 30 years ago. But that said, we are starting to see that become a bigger discussion point at the higher levels of government. And so hopefully that'll mean bigger funding pockets are made available for affordable housing. But the thing to really drive home is it really doesn't fall. The municipality only has so much capacity. The county levels, if we really want to meaningfully address the problem, it's the federal government, it's the provincial government that need to take swift action. It's the responsibility of the county of Simcoe, but I would argue that's as a result of multiple policy actions over the last 30 years. It had historically been the federal government, and then that got downgraded. But it also does, when we really look at who has the greatest capacity to affect change through the funding amounts that they have or the budgets they have, it's really the higher levels of government that can not just move the needle, they can break off the needle and solve the problem.
We have the Housing and Homelessness Services section. Now, GM Mina Fayez-Bahgat and Brittany Doner-Gilroy, I believe, have a presentation for us. So item number 21.1, CCW 2025-301, Building Up Simcoe County, a community blueprint for affordable housing presentation. And look forward to hearing about this before we go to discussion. I'll turn the meeting over to Mina Fayez-Bahgat. Thank you.
Through you, Chair Measures. And council members, this will be a presentation on our 10-year affordable homelessness and affordable housing and homelessness prevention strategy. A little bit of context before we start. This plan was scheduled to be passed in 2024 and was being worked on at the tail end of 23. The provincial government, through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, asked all service managers to pause and wait for further instruction to ensure that the plans being passed across the province were aligned to this government's core principles. So while we were in moratorium waiting for advice and guidance, we continued to do the work on surveying our community and hearing back from what our community wanted to hear from the plan. We had presented to council in 2024 some of that what we heard documentation. So just a few things before we jump in. You'll hear about 3 core things we've heard, and it'll demonstrate how they are reflected in this 10-year strategy. You'll also see that this strategy is focused on flexible targets and achievable outcomes, and maximizing impact throughout our whole community. And then finally, what you'll see with this plan is a tool that could be used as an advocacy component to our conversations with different orders of government, and introduces innovative ways to create more affordability and prevent or end homelessness by partnering with different sectors, including the health sector, the justice sector, the nonprofit sector, and the private sector. So I'm going to hand it over here to Brittany Donner, who has been the key person working on this plan for what seems to be a little bit over 2 years now. But also to reflect this plan, we chose not to use consultants. So this is all provided and developed in-house through our staff team. Brittany?
Thank you. I can probably just project either. So why a strategy like this matters? Mina covered a bit of it for you, but I think first and foremost, we all know that affordability challenges have intensified across our communities. This strategy addresses current challenges tied to housing affordability, supply and demand challenges, as well as interventions to mitigate homelessness. The strategy also provides a unified approach. It's going to bring a collective goal that we can all galvanize around in partnership across sectors, public, private, and not-for-profit, as well as across communities and residents. So as Mina mentioned, this is a legislated requirement under the Housing Services Act. All consolidated municipal service managers must have 10-year affordable housing and homelessness plans. And we are required to submit one to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing by May 29th, 2026. Now, because the pause kind of put us on pause and we were already motoring along, upon approval of this strategy, we are prepared to submit immediately, essentially. Now, what you're looking at is the housing continuum, and it's actually the reason we ended up deciding to go internally on this one. And it's because when we started looking at it and determining what we needed to do, and just so you know, we are required as service manager to serve this entire continuum, we started to notice that we already had a number of strategies in play that were already doing this work. We'd already hired consultants, we'd spent that money, we were already operating in the realm of certain areas across this continuum. So, for example, the 10-point homelessness prevention plan introduced in fall of 2023, it serves that sort of highest level of government assistance, the very low income, on things like emergency shelters, transitional housing, encampments, prevention, and emergency response. Then we started looking at the SCHC master plan, which we knew was coming down the pipes, and it was then approved in spring 2024. And it focuses on that sort of low income affordable housing. This is our purpose-built affordable rental that we do through our own housing corporation, but it's also our system service management that we do with all of our nonprofit and cooperative housing providers, and the capital repairs that we're offering to keep those buildings sustainable. And then we had our planning department team that we work very closely with through our municipal liaison group attached to the previous strategy. And they were developing an attainable supply action plan. And as you can see, that addresses the side that social and community services doesn't really, which is the market side. And what that plan is meant to do is incentivize the development of attainable and affordable housing within the market, as well as incentivize just development at large, really, to increase supply. So it's a really small gap that you see in there that isn't really covered, and that is that low to median income. And we really do that in social and community services through a lot of our housing programs. So that's where we really sort of tie it all together under one umbrella. And so what you see here is a whole county approach to planning. We're not doing these things in piecemeal. We're not working in silos, as we love to say. Now we actually are all under one umbrella, and we can even report success and delivery across the housing continuum under one umbrella. What's important here is these are county strategies you're seeing, but we did actually work very closely with all of our cities and municipal partners as well. That Attainable Supply Action Plan was developed by a consultant, Barrie Lyons, or NBLC for short. They actually supported the city of Barrie at the same time on an affordable housing strategy, and we actually worked in tandem with them to share data. So we were working very closely in partnership while we were both developing these pieces. We also worked in alignment with the town of Collingwood and the city of Orillia on their housing action plans as well to ensure consistency in data and promote community engagement efforts. So there was so much happening across all of our communities. We didn't want residents to be too fatigued in participating or get confused. So we actually all strategically worked together to differentiate our plans. Also reflected in the strategy, but not visible here, are the county's own local immigration partnership community settlement strategy, our community safety and well-being plans, and our age-friendly strategy. And again, so the value of this alignment is really just to bring all these pieces together so our efforts internally add up and don't overlap. We don't want to be duplicating and stepping on our own toes. So this is just a very brief nod to the data. You notice from the report there's two different pieces attached, a summary strategy and a full strategy. The full strategy really is a very comprehensive analysis and understanding of the needs and trajectory of the community. It's got a lot of data in it and a lot of our methodology and different pieces of analysis. But this here is just to kind of I guess explain the fact that we really did do our research and understanding the needs and trajectory of our community and the people residing here is paramount to planning. So there's not a ton of data in the presentation. It's in that big report. But here is what we're noticing. So population pressures, obviously, we are growing significantly since 2001. We've grown by 150,000. By 2034, which is near the end of this strategy, we'll have added another 146,000, essentially doubling our population from 377,000 to 679,000. This growth will drive further demand for housing services and, of course, infrastructure. We do have an aging population as well. Near the end of this new proposed strategy, almost 1/3 of our residents will actually be seniors aged 65 to 79, and twice as many residents will be in the over 80 age bracket. So what this means is we're going to see more demand for senior-friendly and accessible housing, personal supports, healthcare services, and transit. What we already heard in our community engagement from the market side is that there is going to be an increased demand for smaller, affordable options so that seniors can downsize out of some of those bigger homes and open up the continuum in those ways, as well as communities with amenities or programs to support aging in place. So that was things like condos that have shoveled walkways and different things that make it easier for seniors. We already do offer a number of programs. We have accessibility modifications to help aging in place, but our senior services department obviously has a whole strategy around that and offers supports as well. And we do have our long-term care homes that offer different levels of services for people as they age. Housing affordability. We all know this one's becoming a little tight. It's out of reach for a lot of renters specifically. We know that average monthly rents are outpacing many incomes. Nearly 1/4 of rental households, sorry, doing a lot of talking, identify as being in core housing need, which means they're spending 30% or more of their before tax household income on their accommodation costs. Now you'll see here, this data is from 2022. We do actually keep current rental dates on our new rental data aggregator on open.simcoe.ca. And you can actually check them in real time. The reason we used that data was to align with core housing need data and census data. So they were all from that 2022 time period. So we were comparing apples to apples to apples. So this gives you a real depiction. But I just checked yesterday and the rental aggregator is placing rents around this amount. So anyway, as you can see, the median income is $54,000 to $56,000 annually. Based on that 30% rule, that places rent around $1,350 to $1,500 a month as being affordable. And you can see these rents just aren't for some of those families. So it's about 1/4 of the renter population, not the whole population, just of all renters, 1/4 are in core housing need. And we also obviously are seeing an increase in homelessness in our communities. As of this fall, 1,464 households are identifying as actively homeless on our quality by name list. This list, also called the QBNL, provides real-time tracking of inflow, outflow, chronicity, and household composition. It's also third-party reviewed by the federal government, so they keep everybody on track. And we did perform another enumeration in 2024. This is a point-in-time count. So we go out in one evening and we try to engage with as many people as we can that are identifying as being homeless. And in 2024, we did notice a sizable increase in the percentage of individuals identified as unsheltered or sleeping rough. It jumped from 4% in 2022 to 30% in 2024. We do ask the reasons that they attribute to this, and the primary reason expressed for housing loss was not enough money to just afford those housing supports. So this strategy does respond to both the urgent need to expand housing supply, but as well as supports prevention and diversion, which we're really zoning in on to keep people out of these situations. Thank you, Mina.
So the next little area is just discussing how we are aligned both provincially, federally, and municipally through different legislations that require us as a service manager to meet certain targets, spend money a certain way, and develop a strategy specific to what both the federal and provincial governments are seeking to achieve. Furthermore, it's also, we're using this 10-year strategy to demonstrate that we as a municipality are not only aligned federally and provincially, but set our own goals and targets to achieve what we need here as a community based on the data that Brittany just shared. One thing we're making sure we're doing this is, one, it does unlock more funding and resources, but it also ensures that we're a leader both provincially and federally, and we maintain that role. The last 10 years, we were quite successful in our first 10-year strategy, and we're looked upon both at the federal and provincial governments as leaders in delivering our social services when it comes to affordable housing and homelessness prevention. So this strategy is built on 3 pillars: supply, people, and service system management. And the reason why we did this is because we heard 3 key things from our surveying of the community. And I just want to remind you, when we went out and did this survey, we had over 4,000 respondents in comparison to 10 years ago when we did our survey, where we had 700. So clearly affordable housing and homelessness prevention is something at top of mind in our communities, but also something, what we heard from them are 3 things. One, that the way we capture how we achieve our targets needs to be a little bit more transparent and separate our capital development from our service manager support service role, which also creates affordability. So here you'll see in the plan why we're separating the supply from the people's services from our system service management role, and how that all together will create a new target to create more affordability and prevent or end homelessness. So we're going to walk through each: supply, people, and system service management, and our actual goals that we're setting in each. And then I'll demonstrate a little bit of how we're funding in those ways, and then how we're advocating as well through those 3 pillars.
Thank you. So as Mina mentioned, we have the 3 pillars: supply, people, and service system management. Under each pillar is 5 strategic objectives in each of those categories. So in essence, it's a 15-point plan. It's probably the easiest way to say that. Supply, again, is building, preserving, and incentivizing affordable housing. We intend to do that by increasing the supply of new affordable rental housing, preventing or mitigating the loss of existing affordable rental housing, creating affordable rental housing within existing supply through subsidies and infill, regulating the use of existing housing stock, and aligning housing supply with market and local needs. As you can see here, point number 1 and 2 really do align with that SCHE master plan and those capital repairs pieces. You can see the subsidies reflected in number 3. So 1, 2, and 3 together is really housing people in housing. It's either new housing built, or we're getting in there with a subsidy to bridge that gap. And you'll see that kind of, strategy sort of reflected in some of the funding pieces as well. Serving people is about supporting residents with diverse needs by using people-centered solutions, and we intend to do that by decreasing the number of households experiencing core housing need, first and foremost. So that's some of those renters you saw, that 1/4 that are identifying as unable to afford that rent. Mitigating eviction into homelessness through prevention, diversion, and rapid rehousing responses. This one is incredibly important. I'm going to give you even more details as to why in a few slides coming forward. We're going to address the unique needs of individuals and households experiencing or at risk of homelessness through appropriate housing and supports. And we're going to create inclusive communities that support the health, well-being, and safety of all community members. So you can see those CSWB plans sort of reflected in that pillar. And we're going to enhance client experiences within Simcoe County Housing Corporation. And that is that people side of that delivery of housing that we do. And service system. Again, this is the coordinated data-driven delivery and strengthen community partnerships. This is really how well we're doing our work. This is our sort of performance piece. And so we are going to continue to enhance community shelter services and standards. We are going to strengthen partnerships and system coordination with community and municipal partners to optimize housing and homelessness prevention initiatives, improve information sharing, and expand alternatives to encampments that support transitions into stable housing. We're going to improve the effectiveness and impact of affordable housing initiatives through systemic data collection, including disaggregated data. If you're not a data person, all this just means is we chunk out data and we learn a lot more. So rather than residents responded to the survey, it's, well, you know, this many youth and this many seniors responded, or this many owners and this many renters responded. And this data actually does give us a major leg up. Ongoing monitoring and evaluation processes to inform evidence-based decision-making and ensure successful program delivery. We're going to ensure that SCHC affordable housing projects are created and implemented with a dual focus on environmental sustainability and fiscal responsibility, providing cost-effective, inclusive living solutions for residents. And we're going to generate innovative partnerships and revenue streams to support increased affordable housing creation. This one's huge. We know it's just costing more, especially to develop, but we're also seeing more demand for things like rent supplements and programs. So we need to get a little bit more innovative to make sure that we can maximize that funding that's coming in. A big focus of that will be partnerships. And I'll hand it back over to Mina.
So when we're talking about the funding, a clear difference between the last 10-year plan and this one is we're separating our capital from our operating programs. And that way we can count the net new units we've created versus the affordability and households we support through rent supplement programs or homelessness prevention programs or homelessness intervention programs. And what we're doing here is we have the benefit of a 10-year analysis to understand the funding and how it works. And we've recognized that funding does come in two components, both federally and provincially. We have standard base funding that comes more on the operating side of the programs that we can actually extrapolate for and predict. And then we have capital programs for the last 10 years that unfortunately are based on application-based or one-time funding or limited funding or time-sensitive funding with different types of guidelines. So why we wanted to create a separation between the two is because it provides us more flexibility to achieve the goals we're about to set. The other thing that we wanted to do is respond back to what we heard. So this was one thing we heard, that we wanted to see that separation of the two, so we're counting correctly when we're talking about how many things we're achieving or creating. Secondarily, we heard that we needed flexibility to be able to adapt to the changing needs. So this gives us that. And third, they wanted to see a reflection more about people-focused needs, especially marginalized populations, and in particular, Indigenous populations. So you'll see that in this 10-year strategy. So as I just shared, like the challenge on the short-term funding really does trap you if you want to set one number as a target. So here where you're going to see a dynamic number depending on what level of contributions received and what innovative partnerships we strike over the next 10 years. So here's how we're target setting our baseline. As you can see in capital, based on already what we have committed here as a county, we're set to create through the Simcoe County Housing Master Plan 1,091 net new units and 240 additional secondary secondary suites or garden suite strategies that are going to come in the next 10 years. This adds up to 1,331 net new created units. At the same time, through basically what we're doing right now as a municipal commitment to our municipal rent supplement program, creating 820 more rent supplements in the next 10 years, relying on the Canada-Ontario Health housing benefit to come into fruition and continue to be funded. We can support 2,840 households in affordable rent, creating those units in existing stock by buying down the rent. And third, our home ownership down payment program. This is our smallest of the programs. As home ownership becomes more and more expensive, you have less participation. But just based on the last 10 years, we can add another 90 households being supported in that program. So that is a total of 3,750. This is just new supply that we can create. Additionally, what we didn't count in the last 10 years is all the homelessness prevention and affordability diversion we've been doing. So, for example, we prevent around 1,500 households a year from falling into homelessness with housing retention strategies. That could be first and last month grants, utility grants to pay down arrears, things to either keep people housed or allow them not to touch our system and enter into new housing without relying on an emergency shelter or an encampment or any other type of homelessness outcome. Additionally, 290 total households are being served through capital repair programs. This is our service manager role, where we are paying for the capital backlog in our nonprofit housing providers in exchange for them to continue to maintain the affordability rent rates in their units. And that averages about 5.5 buildings a year, where we're entering into these long-term agreements to be able to address their capital backlog in order to maintain their units and not allow them to exit the system and sell off their properties into the private market. So in total, that is serving in over the next 10 years, 15,915 households. So our total target for the 10 years is 20,996. This relies on all three orders of government contributing to this plan. So again, we just walked through the difference between the first 10 years and the last 10 years. And really the major difference is, one, we're doubling the amount of rent subsidies and system-based programming to create affordability. And we're counting for the first time all the preventative work or increasing the capacity to end homelessness into that strategy as well. So this is how we're using this tool to become more flexible and dynamic. What we know in the first set of stacked columns there, that in the 1/3 target, we can achieve this right now because this is what we've committed to do. So we've committed $293 million and 603 to create 603 units through the Simcoe County Housing Corporation's master plan over the next 10 years. This is the 3 projects that are in flight now, plus future projects in the next 5 years. We also know that we've committed as a municipality to our municipal rent supplement program and our home ownership program at the tune of $18 million over the next 10 years. Primarily, that's the rent supplement programs that we're currently operating and the ones we're extrapolating and growing over the next 10 years. And then finally, we know that we're spending about $13.1 million in base funding over the next 10 years on our homelessness prevention and affordable housing maintenance strategies, which again gives you 15,915 households. So this is our total 1/3 target that we know we can achieve. It's 324,017,482 households being served. Now, if the provincial government matches our capital contribution and matches our municipal rent subs through the Canada-Ontario housing benefit, which is both federal and provincial, but their portion of it, and we continue to do the same level of housing retention and homelessness diversion work, we find our 2/3 target to be 624 million with the provincial capital contribution matching ours, and serving 20,582 households. And finally, if both the federal and provincial governments both match our capital contributions, that would be $912 million in capital funding to 20,996 units served households served, which would include a total, you could see here, the growth in the development side would go from 600 units to 960 units to 1,300 units, depending on if we receive both federal and provincial contributions. So this shows how this can be an escalating target, depending on how many each level of contribution being matched federally and provincially. It allows us also to engage our federal and provincial partners in focused projects here at the county, and hopefully having them work with us to achieve the final outcome. So this is you. Oh, you can switch.
This is the one I was excited to tell you about. So the importance of diversion and prevention, you're seeing us mention this a lot, and this is going to become a large part of the target. There was a national and provincial service managers can make better informed decisions when they have access to strong, comprehensive environmental scans. This by far was one of the most eye-opening. As demonstrated by the BC study on eviction prevention, and this was conducted by the BC Rent Bank in 2024, this study shows the value of eviction prevention, and it analyzed 1,500 households supported by eviction prevention per year. And that is exactly the amount that we are serving about annually for eviction prevention. So same number of people, same type of program. When tenants stayed housed, they saved an average of $457 a month. So what this means is if there's a challenge like somebody's in arrears, if we can prevent them being evicted from that location, that prevents them from entering into housing with higher rents, which means what we would then have to supplement in terms of a rent subsidy would end up going up as well. So you figure that's per one person. If a number of people, we could keep them in that same location, it is a large cost savings. Additionally, without support, 40% risked homelessness, driving up shelter and public costs. We know those are the highest costs. So we want to divert people from homelessness as much as we possibly can. In total, the rent banks saved $27.5 million in that 1 year. It's about a $5 return for every $1 invested. So prevention isn't just the right thing to do, it is also the most cost-effective thing to do. Another part of the strategy, and again, this is just a very high level, but we wanted to make you aware that we did do a risk assessment and just studied impacting factors. Obviously, nobody has a crystal ball. We don't know what the next 10 years is going to look like. During the previous strategy, we were hit with the COVID pandemic, and that changed a lot of the housing landscape. But we are realistic about the risks and controls that we can put into place. Things like economic conditions obviously could affect the strategy, inflation, interest rates, unemployment, things like that. Construction and permitting costs, government funding changes, so how much funding we get or don't get for certain things. Demographic growth and migration patterns. This is a big one. Population growth, we know it's coming. There's also changes in internal migration sometimes. So for example, during COVID, we saw a lot of people leave urban areas for rural areas. I know through the municipal liaison group that brings planners from all over, we did hear from some places outside of the county that had been especially impacted by this, especially on services and infrastructure. And also planning for, as Mina had mentioned, we want to do better planning for Indigenous communities. And so on and off reserve planning is another one where you see a lot of influx in migration certain times of year. Market conditions, such as just rents, supply and demand, obviously can affect the strategy. Operational risks, we know anytime that NIMBYism affects a project, it takes time and money. And program uptake. So some of these things like rent supplements, secondary suites grants, homeownership down payment assistance, we give them based on demand. People request them and we provide them. So if people don't request them, obviously that would change how many we deliver. But we are going to continue identifying and monitoring risks. This builds credibility and accountability. We will do this not only in our implementation planning, where we plan to monitor all along, but also through our annual reporting, which is also a ministerial requirement. We did it under the last one where we reported every year, and we will continue to do that as well. And we are nearing the end. But this is just about basically the access to the work that we've done. Upon approval of the strategy, there are 2 documents that were provided also alongside your report as schedules, but there's a summary document, and it's just meant to be a very high level, easy to read, infographic type document, and more for the general public so they can really understand what this strategy means to them. It's also a great quick reference. The full strategy, however, is the technical backbone document. It's close to 100 pages, and it's got a lot of hard work in it. And again, we actually had the benefit of working on it for about a year and a half, and then being told not to work on it while we secretly really kept working on it. So anyway, it's like about 3 years of work that have gone into this thing, realistically. It includes the detailed research, policy frameworks, and explanation of our methodology and our full funding model breakdown in significantly more detail. It also provides full transparency on the new targets and strategies under Building Up, our new community blueprint. So upon approval of this strategy, as I mentioned, we would be able to submit that to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and for comment, and we'll report back on any changes or recommendations they have. Part of the report, we are requesting that the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee remains the subcommittee of oversight. So we would have them also update their terms of reference to reflect the new strategy, and staff will also present a comprehensive implementation plan. So we've given you the pillars, we've given you the objectives, then we're going to give you the tactics, the nitty gritty, each little step we're going to do to achieve each one of those objectives. Obviously, we didn't provide that all in one because this isn't approved, but we also have been working on that. So I don't think you'll have to wait too long to see what that looks like either. And I'll pass it back to Mina.
Question. So thank you. I do want to recognize staff. This was a long road of work, and Brittany kind of led the charge, but we have with us both our Housing and Homelessness Director, Andrew Scavarelli, and our now Housing and Community Housing Director, and Brad Spiewak, as well as Nathan, who was leading our planning side of the components. And in the crowd, we just didn't have enough chairs. We also, the Director of Community Support and Wellbeing, as the partnership components of this plan are really aligned, and our Children's Services team as well, because a lot of the affordability is now being tied into services on site that you're seeing in our new developments. So these are all components of how we reduce poverty, which equals more affordability. So any questions?
Thank you very much, Mina, and thank you to Brittany and to your team for preparing this report. It's taken a little bit of time, but it's valuable information that'll help us move forward. I believe CAO Aiken would like to add a comment. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just wanted to chime in on Mina's comments. This has obviously become one of the most complex parts of our portfolio over the years. And although we did spend a little bit time on the presentation this morning, a lot of work has gone into this, and I can tell you that the other service managers, the province and the federal government, are certainly once again looking at Simcoe County as the benchmark here, and a lot of fantastic work to Mina and your team, and thank you again, Brittany.
Thank you very much, CAO. I believe there will be some questions coming from the floor, so please show me your cards. I have Councillor Fryer first, then I have Councillor Sindhu. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Measures, and I'll take the opportunity as well to thank staff for their efforts, especially the coordinated effort between our municipalities and the county. We have the same strategy and goals, and we're trying to make sure people don't fall through the cracks, and we can learn from each other. So again, thank you for all the work you're doing. I wanted to get some clarification about the one on the understanding pressure slide. You talked about from 2022, 4% to 2024, 30%. And that delta suggests a pretty significant wave that we're trying to deal with and possibly reduce. I wondered if some of that is in regards to the fact that I do believe you have more accuracy in your numbers. As you mentioned, there's more responsive from the public, so you're getting the information from the third parties that are involved. And I just wondered if you could maybe review that. Is it something that we still consider as climbing significantly in 2025, or just your thoughts on where that is all at?
Through you, Chair Measures. So it's yes and no. So you're correct. The reason why you see maybe a significant increase in the numbers between every 2 years of the enumeration and our tracking of who's experiencing homelessness at the county is because we've expanded the net of ways to connect with those individuals. So over the last 2 years, we purposely have entered so many more partners that engage people who are experiencing homelessness, like food banks, libraries, our Ontario Works offices, a lot of our health sector, and our justice system. So this way we're understanding the holistic story of someone experiencing homelessness as they touch different parts of different systems. So that's why you're seeing a larger number. The year-over-year increase is what we measure to see how we're doing in terms of how are we addressing, preventing, or mitigating homelessness. And what you're seeing there is, yes, it is growing, but compared to provincial and federal averages, it's growing at a completely different rate or a lesser rate than those two averages. And the reason being is the different interventions and a 10-point strategy that was put in place a couple of years ago, which has set us up to be more responsive now than ever before. So I think, yes, we're still tracking it. We don't rely on enumerated data for our quantitative analysis. We use it as qualitative surveying of understanding people's needs. The quantitative analysis is done through our daily tracking, which is found on open.simcoe.ca. We track on a population level, an individual level, and a geographic level of all the different services we provide for homelessness. So that's really the one that we use to measure our impact.
Just a quick follow-up, and then I mentioned about the coordinated effort between municipalities and county, but also the coordinated efforts with, as you said, the third parties. And I attended the Waypoint announcement a few weeks ago, and I do believe we're making a difference. We always want to make a bigger difference, but I'm glad to hear that for the most part, Simcoe County, we feel we're leading. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to Councillor Sandhu, followed by Follis. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Measures. I want to first thank the General Manager and his team for the presentation and all the hard work that went into this plan. This issue is real, and we're seeing it grow every year. It's not going the opposite, it's going upwards. And I'm happy that we have a plan. But this plan is also dependent on outside entities, provincial and federal partners coming on the table. If the funding from both of these entities or one of them does not materialize, what is the backup plan or what's the fallback? Because we have seen in the past where things happen, but the problem is still there, or the issue, I shouldn't say problem, the issue is still there. And we need to address it. And as my colleague mentioned earlier, county is the leader in this field, and we have shown good work. But what if we're left holding the bag?
Through you,
go ahead.
Chair Measures. So, Councillor Sandhu, the way this plan is designed, that we have a set target that we can achieve on our own without provincial or federal support, especially on the capital side. So that target is still 17,842 households. If provincial and federal contributions happen, especially on the capital side, that would jump to 20,900, almost 21,000. So there's a difference of about 4,000 households, depending on each level. Now, that doesn't say that we just stop on our own target. We'll continue to find ways. We believe that innovative partnerships outside of public partnerships, meaning ones with the nonprofit sector who may be land rich, help us develop more. And you'll see that in the Simcoe County Housing Corporation's master plan strategy for development. You're seeing that actually this year or next year, there's a slated partnership with the county and a nonprofit to develop on its land. Similarly, with the private sector, partnering with private sector and doing PP3s and things like that are things we can explore. But certainly, I do believe that when we demonstrate our success and it's data-driven and evidence-based, both the federal and provincial governments have been very responsive to us, including our homelessness strategies, where even just in the next month, we'll be invited to a closed session with the federal government to discuss development strategies on modular facilities addressing homelessness. So they're recognizing our work. I think these plans are ambitious, but they're achievable for sure.
All right. Thank you very much. Good comment there. Councillor Follis and then Councillor Snell.
Thanks. Thank you. Through the chair, just a couple of questions, and apologies if I rhyme these off. But wanted to start by thanking staff for the detailed report. A lot went into it. And I know in talking with service providers, there was some desire to separate kind of the capital builds that we have from the operating in terms of what we're providing on the affordable housing front and the targets that we're reaching. The first question I guess I had was just in relation to our county wait list, because my understanding is it still is quite long, and with the population trajectory that we're seeing over the next 10 years, we can only anticipate that need would likely grow. I guess, where does even our most ambitious target with full funding from provincial and federal government, where does that put us in terms of the actual wait list? Will we see a reduction? Do we see a complete elimination, or are we just treading water? The other question, I guess, on that front was, in that vein, if we aren't completely eliminating the wait list, is it worth identifying, okay, if we need to eliminate this wait list, how much funding, no matter how high it is, how much funding would we require from other levels of government to get there? Apologies for the series of questions. Thanks.
Through you, Chair Measures. So primarily speaking, the wait list is an indicator. It's not necessarily a really good tool to measure core need. I think the analysis on core housing need based on incomes versus average market rents is what we would use as a measure to see if we're making a difference. The reason why is because there's two wait lists actually and not one right now. And there's a third if you can consider the by name list as a wait list. So you've got a homelessness name by name list of people who need housing. You've got a community housing by name list that is legislated for specific units, rent geared to income units. And then you have an affordable development housing wait list that you create over time as you develop the new builds that are not RGI based or legislated under the Act. In all three instances, people can apply from all across the province and be on any of those wait lists. Obviously, homelessness is tied to community, like where you are here, but the other two are provincial wide. So what we don't know is the analysis of, unfortunately, these wait lists aren't tied to each other provincially. They're managed locally at each service manager level. So we don't know how accurate someone could be applying and waiting on a wait list across 5 jurisdictions. That's why we don't rely on it. What we've done, though, is we're modernizing it as we speak. We're using a Salesforce software. We shared that, I think, at last committee. And last council, that will allow us to then start capturing common clients, understanding their needs, and then and we're also tying our by name list into making it a requirement of seeking housing support. You have to be on our wait lists. In terms of this plan, I think we look at the household served, because what the wait list doesn't tell you is how many people you prevented from needing it. So I think our approach is a bit more data driven than relying on what might be an antiquated way to measure things, and it's not the most accurate way. And again, it depends on buildings. So if you have someone who applies just to one building instead of all of our buildings, they're going to wait very long. And if that building only has 3 units, they're going to wait even longer. So I think length of time or number of people on lists doesn't necessarily is a good indicator. I think more it's about trying to create affordability. I think for us, we understand that we're going to need to hit a certain target of renters and that missing middle component through a whole slew of different strategies tied to attainability as well as affordability. So this is why the more dynamic plan that ties all of our strategies probably captures more impact over time.
Yes, another question?
Yeah.
Go for the follow-up there, Councillor, no problem.
I really appreciate that. Thanks. Very luxurious that I get a follow-up question. Sometimes at different levels, it's difficult. The second question I had was just in reference to the different builds that are identified over the next 10 years. And I think the top 14 have been identified going to 2033. I'm just curious, there are 2 questions I had. One was, and maybe I'm missing it, or maybe it's longer term, a couple of years down the road. But I had thought there had been another plan for really on Oxford Street as well, and I was just curious where that went. But the other question on this front is this list flexible? Could it be added to at a later date? And I'll leave it at that. Thanks again.
Through you, Chair Measures. Yes, the list is flexible. This was just demonstrating the top 14, but the list actually goes much longer than that. And we plug and play. We actually have already done that a couple of times with swapping out orders based on achievability or readiness for a development from an infrastructure need or a utility need or something like that. And West Street Phase 2s are always like taken under consideration. So that would be on the list as well. And it will probably, rise as the needs address it or as opportunities avail themselves. So we're not trapped to a 1, 2, 3 list or like a chronological list in order. In fact, 3 of these projects or the top 4 happening concurrently as we speak. So that kind of demonstrates like it is not a year-over-year commitment. It's just opportunity-based for sure.
All right. Thank you very much. I do have a list going here, so I'm going to go to Councillor Snell, followed by Councillor Leduc.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Number 2, where you speak about supply, the number 2 point was around preventing or mitigating the loss of rentals. And I think that's a key component in the success of this plan for our county and across the country. Because, when we consider in our municipalities, as our municipalities start to develop policy around Airbnbs, I think that's going to help significantly in getting more full-time rentals into the market. But also too, considering outside of government-funded housing, the only other option is investors. And the province has the power to mitigate their problems by just simply allowing non-payments to jump right to the front of the line and prevent that backlog at the LTB and keeping more units in the market rather than being sold by investors because of the risk. How's your advocacy going at AMO or in the other organizations in regards to the LTB and trying to fix some of its dysfunctions?
Through you, Chair Measures. So Councillor Snell, yesterday the province did pass the Bill 60 legislation, which addresses the LTB delays, but also opens up different tools within the timing of applications to allow landlords an opportunity to address non-payment and arrears in a much faster way. It reduces the time for appeals of outcomes based on evictions, doesn't allow a 60-day wait period before you can enforce the eviction after you get the decision. So it seems like the advocacy is been heard. I think we've been working closely with our ministries on demonstrating how there are units trapped that can be utilized, but they're trapped because we have, tenancies that are no longer viable, but are still staying in the unit. So I do think once we see that bill come into action, we're hopefully going to see some opening up, not only as an affordable housing landlord, but as a private sector landlord. And on the other side of the investment piece, we are planning to do a symposium with developers and landlord owners and next year in the city of Barrie to start talking about different ways we can incentivize to create more affordability through development or through current stock and supply. So you'll see that coming in January of next year as well.
A little follow up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. That's really great to hear. Is there going to be any continued conversation to prioritize government-funded housing to even get a more rapid response for bad actors? Because it's just ridiculous sometimes when we've got folks that are in there that are causing significant disruption for the rest of the residents and safety issues as well. There should be an immediate removal. Is there any plan to sort of help push that one forward a little bit?
Through you, Mayor Breshers. Yeah, part of what we're asking for is to reinvest in the Landlord Tenant Board's operational and administrative components that were sized down during the pandemic and turned into virtual models or regional models rather than local tribunals. So I think with Bill 6, there's also changes to the different levels of notices and how fast you can act on them. But we'll have to wait and see until the actual guidelines come out and the implementation occurs. But yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on, we do have Councillor Leduc, followed by Councillor Dolan. Go ahead, James.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, just a great presentation, a great plan, actually. I don't get too excited about things, but this is a pretty damn good plan. When I look at it, and I look at just from our point of view, spending $300 million, if we were to build these units of potentially 5,000, I mean, we're talking a return on investment is astronomical. If you look at an average home sale in the county of 300,000, talk about your stock after what you have is amazing. So the plan really is a great plan. I think it's fantastic when it comes down to, if we get all partners involved, we've got 21,000 units. That's potentially 66,000 residents we're going to serve within our county. That's 10% of our population. So to me, this is a great plan. I have one question, and I would look at it. It's just a suggestion. It comes to non-compliant secondary units. If that was something that we could target within this structured plan, it would bring twofold. It would bring a safety factor to secondary units, which would help our residents bring safer conditions to the secondary units. And it would also increase our tax base because you turn a single resident unit into a duplex. So to me, that's an opportunity for us to look at that through this plan to see if we can actually increase safety and taxation, which again supports the foundation of this plan. So it's a great plan. Thank you very much.
Good comments. Thank you very much. Councillor Dolan is next, and then Councillor Hamlin. Go ahead, Glenn.
Thank you very much for this report and for all the work that you've put into this. Sometimes when I'm reading reports like this, and there's lots of numbers and there's lots of graphs, and sometimes I like to make it real. And to me, that was done by an article in the Collingwood today, talking about a man from Innisfil who was sleeping beside a bank in a sleeping bag. And he ended up in Collingwood's rapid rehousing program. He was the first one, I believe, to be admitted to that program. And now he's living in rent geared to income in Wasaga Beach. And it's just such a good news story that I have to stop, sometimes get away from the overwhelming numbers and just put it down to one person and how we help that one person. And so I just wanted to bring that forward, and thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you for that. Next is Hamlin. Go ahead, Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few days ago, the federal government, of course, released its investment strategy for affordable housing called Build Canada Homes. And of course, this report would have been prepared long before anyone even heard of that. But it did strike me, and I certainly am not that familiar with it myself yet, but that it would contemplate not so much smaller municipalities unless they're joined together to do projects. Have you had a chance to look at that at all yet? And I totally understand if you haven't. And do you see that affecting what you are hoping to do with all of this? Thank you.
Through you, Chair Measures. Yes, we've been in constant discussions with our federal partners on the Build Canada initiative. We are attending like a closed conference in December, specifically on components that would be eligible. And moreover, for the last couple of years through our 10-point homelessness strategy, one section was about creating more units of service for those experiencing homelessness using modular facilities. So we're one of few service managers across the country that's really got some good experience with modulars. And that's one of the pre-qualifications they're looking for, to design. Our garden suites or our in-suite strategies are also relying on small, tiny home modulars for our own supply stock. And we're looking to, we're piloting, I believe, 3 right now. And then we're going to learn from that pilot and go. So that would be an also eligible one. And again, this this 10-year strategy is a upper tier strategy. So it unifies all the member municipalities, and based on our population, we'd be eligible for most of what the larger municipalities are lining up for as well. So yeah.
Oh, that's great news. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gordon, did you want to speak?
Thank you. And Mina, I sent this to you in an email while we were talking. If you'd missed the CTV segment last night, Midland seems to be an epicenter for these modular home manufacturers. And we have a brand new one called Prime Fab that's just getting started, and they'll be able to scale. So I don't know if they're part of the pilot. I don't think they are. They would have told me yesterday when I was there, but it looks like we can find Simcoe County solutions that'll save us on trucking costs and all the other ancillary costs as long as they meet the qualification. But that's a sidebar. My main thing was just more of an observation. I mean, I'm a landlord, small time. I got one extra place other than where I hang my hat, and I'm blessed with a really good tenant. But if that ever changed and I needed to get rid of the tenant, I can see the value in some of the wholesale changes that are being done at the provincial level to try and make it easier for small time landlords who rely on those payments to pay the mortgage to get rid of bad eggs. The county, though, is in a different situation. As we saw here, it's a lot cheaper to keep people, housed than it is to have them unhoused and re-enter our own system as unhoused individuals. And yet we're landlords, like large-scale landlords, and we, routinely have people who either don't follow the rules, break all kinds of laws, are disruptive, don't pay rent. And these are the kind of people who, to keep the peace for all of the other majority that, are good tenants, we end up also trying to find ways to get rid of them. So we'll avail ourselves of these new tools for the province announces to try and speed up the evictions of those few bad eggs we have. But I guess the hashtag irony on this is we're also now as the service delivery manager, we now have to intake these people into our system and we make them homeless, even though they're extremely difficult to place and they have a track record of not being able to follow rules and being disruptive. We now bring them back into our shelter system and then hopefully into transitional supportive beds or rapid rehousing and, get Empower Simcoe or somebody to place them back in as a tenant where it's just rinse and repeat. And I'm just wondering not for everyone, but some people just won't change until their circumstances change. I'm just wondering, are we contemplating that into our plan, this sort of recidivism and this rinse repeat cycle that we as landlords and also, looking after the whole housing continuum have to square with the costs of delivering these services?
Through you, Chair Measures. So the answer is yes. So just really quickly on the modular stuff, the 3 pilots are happening in Midland. So those are, and the second call is the first week of December. There's a second round of calls. So if you know anyone who's interested in applying for that call to be one of the modular providers, you could go to bids.com, like Simcoe bids.com. The eviction prevention strategies we have in place in our community housing stock are actually part of the legislative system of things you have to do before you go down the road of eviction. We've invested in supportive services on site in our community housing stock to try to keep as many people housed and save their tenancies. So we have tenant navigators now, which are essentially social worker caseworkers. We've got different mental health and addiction agencies, including CMHA, in partnership and Loft for assisted living in our seniors buildings, doing work to keep people aging in place safely or to keep people who have other challenges to maintain their tenancies. And if and when we have to go down the road for eviction and secure eviction, that's a planned eviction with a transition component. And each of those evictions are reviewed by senior staff and signed off by me that demonstrate the plan of where the person's going next. And there's a soft handoff. It's not the outcome you want, but it does occur, but it's a small portion of what happens. Like I said, there's 5,000 people living with us across all of our portfolios, and we see less than maybe 3% evictions or 5% evictions a year on a high to low level. So I would say that, yeah, it's a bit of a two-hat situation where you have to be very mindful of what you're contributing to the system and versus what you're assisting in the system. But similarly, we take a different approach and we ask our nonprofits to do the same things. And our private landlords, which we do rent supplements with, we also give things like damage funds and rent funds and arrears management and housing retention programs to private landlords to keep people housed. So while we try to prevent evictions, and that's the the default position to start with. We take every intervention before that results. So I do think it's not as prominent as people think. We're talking about a few units in some of the larger buildings. The other thing we're doing on intake now, when we know it's a more vulnerable client, they are going through our rapid rehousing programs, getting 6 months to 8 months or 9 months of support before they exit their homelessness and enter some of our community housing stocks. So they are more likely to succeed with that support.
Well done. Great stuff. Committee, I think we have in front of us a fantastic plan that's been provided to us by these by the team who have put this together. And so I think this has been a good discussion. And if you have further questions about it, I'm sure you could reach out to Mina or Brittany or any of the members of the team to help answer any specifics you have. At this time, then, I would like to look for the mover and seconder, perhaps Mr. Leduc. You spoke very positively of it. I'd ask you if you'd move it. And perhaps Councillor McClellan, would you second the motion? Thank you very much. That item, CCW 2025-301, dated November 25th, 2025, regarding the Build Up Simcoe County, a community blueprint for affordable housing and homelessness prevention 2025 through 2035, be received. And that the Build Up Simcoe County, a community blueprint for affordable housing and homelessness prevention strategy attached to item CCW 2025-301 be approved and submitted to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and that staff implement the strategy and report annually on progress in accordance with the Housing Services Act 2011. That Council reaffirm the continuation of the governance structure established through Action 1.2 of the previous 10-year strategy, whereby a working group comprised of elected officials, municipal senior staff, and representatives from the public, private, and non-profit sectors was approved. That item was CCW 14-153 back in April of 2014 to support implementation oversight. And that staff bring forward an updated implementation plan, any required revisions to the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee terms of reference to reflect the mandate of the Build Up Simcoe County, a community blueprint for affordable housing and homelessness prevention strategy. Nothing further. Let's call the motion. All in favor? Your Worship, I think that's unanimous.